Welcome. My name is Nova Kenise Smith. You can call me Nova. I'm the program manager for the HUD Learn Leadership Perspective Speaker Series. We have quite a few people here that are from other agencies. We appreciate you being here to support this program. We have quite a few people also virtual for HUD that are online. So I would just like to say welcome on behalf of HUD Learn, our Chief Learning Officer, Dr. Sheila Wright, and our Chief Human Capital Officer, Ms. Monica Matthews. My name, again, is Nova Kenise Smith, Nova Smith, and I'm the Program Manager for the Leadership Perspective Speaker Series. This is the last speaker series that we have for this fiscal year, and so I really appreciate your support for this today. We are, like it said, we have quite a few other agencies here that are supporting this program. We appreciate that. So, a little bit of housekeeping. If you have phones, please put them on mute or step outside if you have to take a call. Please step outside the door for there. We will also be taking questions about 2:45. At 2:45, if you have questions in the audience, you will need to step to the mic. I know you can speak loud, but we have people that are virtual out on the webcast that will need to hear your questions. So please step to the mic if you're able to do so. For those people who are virtual, viewing this on the webcast, I would recommend that you please, if you have questions, first of all, to send them to the email address laal@hud.gov, and you'll see it on the screen up there. And if you have questions, you can also send them to laal@hud.gov, and I will try to vet your questions as they come in for our speaker. Speaking of our presenter today is Mr. Mike Powell. Mike is the Vice President of Organizational Development and Training at the Powell Consulting Group. I've heard some great comments on Mike. I received something from one of our HUD people that said that he was an excellent speaker. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Mr. Mike Powell.
Thank you, Nova. Good afternoon. Y'all didn't even clap for me when she said Mike Powell. Good. It's all right. Y'all can clap. Give me some love. I need it. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor to be before you today. It's been a quick summer, and so this is the time when everybody is kind of scrambling to get back adjusted to the regular pace, and I know you all probably have a lot of work to do, and things are getting back rolling like they were during the regular year, and you got kids to pick up and work to do, and so I appreciate you all taking the time to be here with me and really with us today. So let me start by saying that. Also, I want to thank Nova for giving me the opportunity to be with you all today. I've done a lot of work with HUD over the past 3 or 4 years. Done a lot of work here in headquarters as well as out in the regions. I'll actually be out in the Santa Ana field office on Tuesday. So I'm flying to LA tomorrow, and I'll be in Santa Ana on Tuesday doing work with the field offices. So HUD is one of my favorite organizations to work with. I love the people. I love the mission. You do incredible work. So thank you, Nova, for giving me the opportunity to be here today, and looking forward to spending these. You said we have 3 hours together? No, not 3. Look forward to these 90 minutes that we have together, and it's probably going to be closer to maybe 60, 65, because I do want to leave time for questions and opportunities for you all to share any insights that you all have. This is a little bit different for me. I'm typically a trainer and a facilitator, where I'm walking around and engaging, and you all are having group discussions, and so me being behind a podium was a little difficult. I'm not going to stay behind this podium much longer, because I like to be able to feel the energy. Energy is something that's important with people and leading people and connecting with people, and so I don't like having this barrier between us, because I want to be able to feel this energy. But I'll start here, and we'll kind of see how it goes. Let me tell you a little bit about myself and how I got to this point, how we as a company stumbled upon this concept that we have called the 8 Essentials of Leadership. Folks who have been in my courses before have frequently heard me tell stories about my family business, right? This is a family business that I run with my dad and my cousins, and we've been doing this work for a long time. And I don't know if any of you all have ever worked in any family businesses or worked with parents or kids or cousins or even good friends, but one of the more challenging things that you'll ever have to do, and one of the reasons it's so challenging is because whatever the business is, it becomes the thing that you talk about all the time, right? You can't separate yourself. You know, we're having Thanksgiving dinner, and Dad starts talking about leadership. You know, if you would just pass the macaroni and cheese over there, that would be a great demonstration of leadership. Dad, can I just eat my macaroni and cheese, right? Because as a family, this is what we do. And leadership is something that is a part of us. And it is just who we are. My mom was a principal. So growing up, I watched her being a leader in the school and dealing with her teachers and parents and students. And then my dad retired from the Army, and he was a major in the Army. And after he retired from the Army, he started this business back in '86, long before I ever thought about doing any of this work. But I've always been in the presence of leaders. And I joined the company full-time about 10 years ago. I left my good government job. I was working at the Department of Education, and I was a COTAR. Anybody a COTAR in here? Y'all know what COTARs are? You know, the COTARs are the people that pay the contractors, right? And so I started looking at these invoices that I was paying and looking at what they were making and looking what I was making and paying. And I said, Dad, I think we need to have a conversation. So I joined the business full time. And so 10 years later, you know, here I am. Dad is still in the business. Dad will be 75 years old this year. You would never look at him and see or look like he's 75 years old, but he's still going and still out in organizations. He's at home working on a proposal right now. He's mad because I'm not there working with him. I said, I'm working today, Dad. So, but one thing that happens when we have a family business, as I said, is we talk about this stuff all the time. You know, at Christmas dinner and Thanksgiving dinner, we're watching TV or watching movies or reading books, and it's always something that we see that connects us to leadership. It's nothing for me to get a phone call at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night and say, hey, Mike, turn on the Shark Tank. You know, I don't want to watch no Shark Tank, but you have to understand that this guy has a vision. And for leaders, Dad, I know this. I'm going to teach this tomorrow, but this is what we talk about, right? And so over the course of the years and all these experiences and conversations that we have, we started to say, we're starting to see a lot of the same things, working with different organizations in the federal sector, in the private sector, and nonprofits. I can almost go into an organization and close my eyes and write the report about what's going on in the organization before I've talked to one person, because it's always the same thing. And some of you all who have been here for some time, have come from other agencies, you all may be able to see some of the same similarities here that you've seen in other organizations. See things that maybe at your church or in your community or, God forbid, down the street in Congress. We always see how leadership has the potential to impact people. And so what we decided to do was, in our studies and our meetings with people and our conversations and our readings, what are the things that we are seeing that are similar, right? What are the traits of the best leaders? What are the values of the best leaders? What are some of the foundational aspects of leadership? And so we said, let's get together and come up with our approach to leadership. And so that's how we stumbled upon this concept of the 8 Essentials of Leadership. So the 8 Essentials is a product of my dad's 35, 40 plus years in the military and being a consultant, my 20 plus years working in different organizations in the private sector, in the federal government, and then working as a consultant in a lot of the organizations. And what we have arrived at is this thing that we call the 8 Essentials. So this isn't quite a debut, but I can't tell you that you can go to barnesandnoble.com and get a book on this either. So you all are hopefully seeing the beginning of something that will begin to grow. And this is our concept of 8 Essentials of Leadership. Let's talk about, before we get started with our 8 Essentials, let's talk about what leadership is. We study a lot of researchers, a lot of speakers, a lot of authors who have their perspectives and their ideas and their definitions of what leadership is. And it's always sort of this amorphous thing, like hard to get my hands and my mind and my eyes. It's one of those things where it's like, I know it when I see it. You ever been to a store, you're going shopping, and the person comes over and says, can I help you with something? What are you looking for? And you say, I don't know, but I know it when I see it. That's kind of what leadership is. Sometimes we can't say what it is or what it isn't very clearly and articulately, but we know what it looks like when it's not there. We know what good leadership is. I guarantee you that any of us in our careers have had good leaders and bad leaders. And we've either said, that's the leader that I want to be like one day, or I promise I'll never be like that person again. I never want to have a leader that makes me feel that way. I never want to have a leader that approaches my team and my organization and my work and impacts my performance that way, right? Because we all understand from some perspective about what leadership is. Because we define leadership from the perspective of a follower, right? We define good leadership from the perspective of what it means to follow a good leader. And so we've done all this study and all this research, but we came across this one guy. Anybody who familiar with Dr. Myles Munroe? Dr. Myles Munroe is a researcher, a speaker, and interestingly enough, two things. First of all, he passed away maybe 4 or 5 years ago in a plane crash. So that's the one thing about Myles Munroe. The other thing, and I guess this is just kind of a weird start, he's also from the Bahamas. So as I was preparing for this presentation and just kind of going over some things that I've got from him, I was like, oh man, the Bahamas, like, man, this is crazy. But he was someone that had a huge vision for people. And we love this definition that he gave, that leadership is the capacity to imagine what needs to be done, to mobilize energy towards the accomplishment of activities that lead to desired outcomes, and to influence others to act through inspiration, through passion, shared vision, and conviction to a recognized purpose, right? The part that I really, really like about that definition is that leadership is the capacity to imagine what needs to be done. We all have a vision of what needs to be done. We all have a vision of where we need to go. We all have a vision of where we want to be. And so leadership is the capacity to see that and then do something about it, right? And so what I like about that definition is because now that takes leadership out of the hands of one person. That takes leadership out of the hands of the person that has the big office in the corner, or the person that has a nice parking spot in the garage, or the person that is a SES, or the person that has been here for 15 or 20 years, or the person that is just graduating from college. All of us have the capacity to be leaders and demonstrate leadership, because leadership is a function that an organization needs. And that means it doesn't have to rest in the hands of one person. And it can be tremendously freeing to know, hey, it doesn't matter how much money I make. It doesn't matter what college I went to. It doesn't matter how able-bodied I am. It doesn't matter what I scored on any standardized test. I still have the potential to demonstrate leadership because we know our organization needs it. We know our team needs it. We know our department needs it. And so that's why we added to this concept of 8 essentials of leadership is that it's leadership at every single level. Because at each level of a system, the organizational level, up here where you can't impact or influence any policies, any systems, any regulations, any conversation, you don't have an opportunity to influence, there's some leadership that needs to happen at that level. But then at the team level and the departmental level, there's some leadership that needs to happen there. And then even at the individual level, there's leadership that can be demonstrated there. There's an activity when I train that I love to facilitate, and it gives people an opportunity to kind of mirror an organizational hierarchy. And you have the people up in the front and the people in the middle and the people in the back, and it's interesting to watch people in that dynamic and trying to figure out who's in charge and who's going to tell who to do what, right? Well, no, you're supposed to do this because you're up front. Well, I was waiting for my instructions. Well, you can be in the back and on the front line, and there's still something that you can do. You don't have to sit around and wait for someone to tell you what to do, because leadership is the capacity to imagine what needs to be done. But what I find is sometimes we're not willing to do all the work, or we don't have the energy, or we don't have the passion, or we're just not committed, and that's fine. If those are the reasons why we're not doing it, that is okay, but I would rather you say that I'm choosing not to do it because of the energy than because I don't have the power. Yeah, we don't have the power to make every decision. We don't have the power to influence everything that happens in our organizations, but we do have the power to make a difference. And so what we want to do today is talk about what leadership looks like in a way that everybody can take advantage and be a leader in their organization. So let's start with some fundamentals of leadership. First of all, leadership is a privilege. Why is leadership a privilege? Leadership is a privilege because people choose to follow you. People don't just follow you because you have a title. People don't just follow you because you've been around a long time. People don't just follow you because you've seen some stuff. There is something that you have to do to make people choose to follow you. Any of you all who are on social media, if you follow people on social media, there is usually something that somebody does that makes you hit that follow button. They have great content. They have great pictures. They make me laugh. There is something that they're doing, and it is a privilege for them to have you as one of their followers. And as leaders, I want you to remember that people follow you because of something that you are doing to help them choose to follow you. Not because you're the boss. I don't know how many if you all have ever had someone who's been the boss but hasn't been the leader, right? I've been in offices plenty of times when that person who greets me when I walk into the office and makes sure I have everything, that's the leader in the office right there. They may not be sitting in the C-suite. They may not know all the rules and all the policies, and they can't execute all the things that that office takes care of, but they are the leader of that office, right? Next thing that leadership does is leadership facilitates an environment of success. Leadership is about creating an environment where people are willing to do and give their best stuff. I often talk about motivation and people get frustrated. Oh, I can't seem to motivate these people. I can't figure out what's going on. I can't figure out how to get them going. I can't figure, is something wrong? Well, the problem is that you haven't created the environment where people have been willing to choose to be motivated. I can't just motivate you just because I can do the same thing for her that I can do for her, and she responds to it differently. And so it's not about my motivation, it's about the environment that I have created. So I've created an environment for her, but there's something that I need to do differently for her. And so my challenge is to figure out how to create that environment. Next thing is that leadership is about relationships. Leadership is about relationships. I had a boss tell me one time, Mike, if I had 5 hands and 5 arms and 5 legs and 5 heads, I wouldn't need you because I could do it all by myself. But I don't. So I need you. And so as leaders, we get work done through other people. So it is important that we have relationships with people so that we can understand how best to leverage the skills, the knowledge, the abilities, the attitudes that they're bringing to the workplace every single day. I need to have a relationship with them. Now people say, well, Mike, it's hard to be a leader and be best friends with my people. I didn't say be best friends. I said have a relationship. Understand people's strengths, their weaknesses, understand their passions, understand their turn-ons, their turn-offs. When I used to play basketball, I used to play point guard. And when I played point guard, I knew where my players like to have the ball. Oh, I'm left-handed, so he wants the ball on the left side. He wants the ball on the right side. He wants the ball in the middle. He wants the ball at the three-point. He likes to shoot. He likes to get out and run. He likes to fall back. So I know I always have somebody trailing me. I knew where my guys like to get the ball because I had a relationship with them. Right? So leadership is about building those relationships with people so that you can figure out how to get the best out of them. Because ultimately, they're the ones that are going to get the work done. Effective leadership energizes people, right? When you're in the presence of good leadership, you feel good, you feel energy, you feel energized. And finally, leadership is a function that should be shared at every single level of the organization so that it doesn't rest with one sole person. Leadership is a function that makes sure that things that need to get done are getting done. And anybody can execute that function. And anybody has the capacity and the capability to execute. So let's get into our 8 essentials. So we have increased self-awareness, provide aiming points, get people on board, convert energy into effort, and I'll go back into each one of these in detail, so I'm going to keep going. Adapt to change, manage processes, track progress, and last but not least, think like an entrepreneur. So let's start with increased self-awareness. Self-awareness is critical to effective leadership. Because as a leader, the tool that you have to use to execute leadership is yourself. So you have to be aware of what you are doing to impact the environment that you're trying to create. You ever been around somebody that had no idea how they had an impact on people? They had no idea how they made people feel. They had no idea how they were coming across. They were just kind of a bull in the china shop and just running around and running out, and they had no idea. It's kind of like, anybody ever been into a restaurant and you go into the bathroom and the floor might be wet and there's some toilet paper on the floor, and you walk in and you finish using the bathroom and you got a piece of toilet paper stuck on your shoe and you walking around and you think you looking good. You got on your Armani suit and your red bottom shoes, but you got a piece of toilet paper. You have no idea that you got this stuff that you dragging around with you, and it's impacting you. And without having self-awareness of who you are and how you impact the environment, you're going to look like that person walking around with a piece of toilet paper on their shoe and don't have any idea. The other thing is that we have to understand and be able to confront who we are, confront our biases, confront our prejudices, confront our strengths and weaknesses and our limitations, because all of those things impact the environment that we create. Now, sometimes we're not aware of it. Sometimes we choose not to be aware of it. Some people say, oh, the best thing in the world is just to be enlightened. Oh, I just want to be enlightened and just walk around in this enlightened space. But you know what some people say? I want to be darkened. I don't want to know anything. Ignorance is bliss. Don't mess with me. If I'm having this stuff going on, don't tell me. I don't want to know about it, because if I know about it, then I got to do something about it. If I know that I'm having this impact on the people around me and I'm coming back to these same problems every single time and I'm the common denominator, then that means I got to do something with myself. And some people don't want to do that work, because that can be the hardest thing you'll ever do in life, is looking yourself in the mirror and telling yourself that I have to change, telling myself that I'm not good enough, telling myself that what was working for me then is not working for me now, and I have to do something different. So the key, if you don't remember anything else from this 90 minutes that we're together, is that self-awareness is critical. Because you and you and you and you and you and each one of you all are the things and the people that makes leadership happen. It's you. It's what you do. How do you impact people? So you have to be willing to look at yourself, be willing to get feedback, and it might not always be comfortable. It might not always feel good. I was looking at this picture right here. I was like, that's a handsome looking guy right there. He's all right with me. But that's not how I look when I'm not taking photo shoots, right? That's not how I look when I'm presenting, right? Sometimes I gotta look at myself at how I look when I'm not in front of the cameras. And I gotta be willing to see these warts and these blemishes and these bumps. I gotta be willing to look at myself that way. And I need to have that self-awareness of myself. The next thing we want to do is provide aiming points. Leadership is about how do you let people know where we're going. Some people may call them a vision. Some people may call those aiming points a goal. Some people may call those aiming points objectives. But whatever you call them, your goal is to help people understand where is it that we need to go and why. Why do we need to go there? What's the saying? If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, right? So leadership ensures that we know where we want to go. Leadership ensures that we know what success looks like. Leadership ensures that we are all on the same page about what we need to do to get there, how we're going to get there, and what happens once we arrive. So you got to provide aiming points for people. If I was, where are we? We're in D.C. If I was driving up to New York and I wanted to make sure we're going in the right direction, because I got a caravan of cars following me, and we're driving up to New York, then I should see some signs along the way to let me know I'm going to New York. I might see a sign for Baltimore. I might see a sign for Delaware. I might see a sign for Pennsylvania. I might jump on the Jersey Turnpike for hours and see all these signs about Atlantic City and all these cities, but I know that I'm going in the right direction. Now, if I'm trying to get everybody to New York and I see a sign that says Woodbridge, or I see a sign that says Richmond, we're probably going in the wrong direction, right? So leadership makes sure that we know where we're going and that we're all on the same page about being there. And then once you know where you're going, the next thing you got to do is figure out how to get people on board. That's why we talked about having a shared vision. Because, again, it's about people, right? And people aren't just going to get on board because I say this is where we need to go. I need to help them figure out and give them context and meaning about why this is the right place to go. Why is this the right direction? How can I get you on board? What questions do you have? You ever been in an organization that's going through some change, and they come through and they say, all right, folks, this is what we're going to do today. This is a new direction. All right, I hope to see all of you all aboard. Let's get started. And you're like, well, wait a minute. What does that mean for me? Do I need to work late? Do I need to come in early? Is my roles going to change? Is my job description going to change? I have a lot of questions. And without giving people an opportunity to be heard, ask their questions, and understand where they fit, then it's going to be hard for them to get on board. I'm not going to get on board with you just because. Now, my dad was in the Army. Now, all he wants someone to say is, yes, sir, 3 bags full. And suffice to say, in the Army, there is a vision and there's a reason for me to get on board, because I know if I don't get on board, there's going to be severe consequences for me not getting on board. So it may be some pushback, but getting on board in some situations, in urgent situations, is a lot easier than it is in others. But generally speaking, you want to make sure that you get people on board. Sometimes you got to say, you know what we're doing right now, it's not good enough. We can do better than this. The status quo is no longer acceptable. I believe that all of us have a higher person inside of us that is dying to come out, and what leadership does is appeals to that higher person to say, okay, this is who you want to be, this is who you think you are, this is where you think we can go. Let me figure out how to draw that out so we can all benefit from who you are and who you want to be. But what do I need to do for you to get there? How can I help you? What questions do I have from you? And sometimes you may not always give people the answer that they want. Sometimes people want you to say yes, and the answer is going to be no. But you gave them an opportunity to be heard. And sometimes that's the best you can do, is give people an opportunity to be heard. Napkins, paper towels, somewhere. Thank you. So you have to do something to get people on board. Y'all with me? All right, good. Now, once you get people on board, you've got them on board and there's some energy. Thank you. There's some energy. I like talking in terms of energy these days because I think energy is something that people can connect with. And there's some energy. It's not always good energy. It's not always positive energy, but there's energy. Anybody ever been on anybody here been in any of my classes here before? Oh, y'all been in my classes. All right, good. I can tell stories that y'all haven't heard already. Anybody ever been on a timeshare presentation? Them long presentations, and they say it's only going to take 45 minutes. And 5 hours later, they still holding you like, man, I just want my tickets to Busch Gardens. I'm ready to go to the casino. You said you're going to give me this stuff. But I learned when I was selling timeshare that the best person to sell a timeshare to was a person that came in and they were pissed off with us. Oh, Mike, they promised me this 5-star room, and I come in here and it's a 2-star, and I was supposed to have a balcony, and I was supposed to see the water, and this is terrible, and I don't see anything, and this is terrible. And I just let them vent, and I would say, oh, I got one. I was 19, I didn't know anything about timeshares, I didn't know anything about budgeting, I didn't know anything about anything, but I knew that if they were having some energy, if they were upset, I could easily flip that person. You know, the person who I had a problem with is the person who sat there with their spouse or their family and they didn't say anything. I said, well, look at this book. Nope. Well, don't you have any questions? Nope. Well, tell me about your vacations. Wouldn't you love to go to Hawaii and see yourself? I'm giving them my best sales. See yourself on the beach and smell the plumeria flowers and hear the waves crashing down. And they're like, nope. No energy. I knew I wasn't going to sell that person. But when people have some energy, what leadership does is takes that energy and converts it into effort. See, we often talk about, oh, these people complaining all the time, and they don't want this to happen, they don't like this to happen. What they are doing is demonstrating leadership through their energy. They are not comfortable with something. And so what my job is to figure out what do I need to do to take that energy and convert it into effort, because I know they care. Because if they didn't care, they wouldn't say anything. And we'd be stuck in this dance where people do just enough work not to get fired, and we pay them just enough so that they don't quit, right? no energy. But I find more organizations have untapped energy and untapped potential. And our job is to figure out how can we convert that energy into effort. Often that is going to come as a result of relationships, as a result of your aiming points, as a result of something that you do to make people feel good about being in the environment that you created. Because you are taking that energy and you're moving it, and you're moving it, and you're moving it, and you're moving it. We have this term that we like to use called discretionary emotional energy. Anybody ever heard that term before? Discretionary emotional energy. Discretionary emotional energy I describe to people, it's kind of like you ever, coming home from work or coming home from, being out, and you got to use the bathroom real bad, and you look at your gas tank and the light comes on, and you're like, woo, I need some gas. But I got to use the bathroom. But I know, even though the light comes on, I got 5 more miles in my tank and I can make it home because I don't want to stop at the mall and I don't want to stop at the gas station. I know that even though my light comes on and it's on empty, I got something left in the tank. We all have a little bit left in our tank that it is at our discretion to deploy, right? So when you get an email from somebody at 4:45, on Friday, and they say, hey, can you send this report to me? And you say, nope, I get off at 4:46, can't do it. Sorry, right? Discretionary emotional energy says, you know what, let me get this done because this is something that's important and I feel good about this leader. I feel good about this leadership. I feel good about this team and there's something that I can do. I'm important. I can make a difference. So instead of sitting on it, let me get it done right now. Let me call home. Let me call an Uber. Let me take a later shuttle. Let me take another cab. Let me take another metro. Let me do something to make sure that this thing that I've been asked to do gets done. Or I'm going to say, you know what, I can't do it right now, but when I get home this evening, I'll send it to you and make sure that it gets done. But because of my discretionary emotional energy that makes me feel good about this environment that you're creating, makes me willing to do that. But if we aren't creating that good energy and then taking that energy and creating it into effort, when that gas light comes on E, the car is going off and no work is going to get done. And so leadership makes sure that the energy is there and that we're mobilizing people to perform, to effort, to get things done. And so here's some ways, if I didn't mention it, if you're looking on the slides, there's some different ways that you can do that. But I think that it's important to make sure you are doing something to make people feel energized and willing to give their best effort. You good? All right. Next thing is, how do we adapt to change? We've been in organizations that are relatively stable, right? Especially in the federal government. They've been here for years and years and years and years, and we know that they're probably not going anywhere in most cases. But even within the stable environments that we're in, change is a constant. That's something that we know is going to happen. And so we have to figure out how to adapt to change. How am I scanning for opportunities? What am I noticing? Where is the energy? Is the energy moving? We know in the federal government, every 4 to 8 years, there are going to be some new folks who come in the office, and everything that we're working on right now, in 6 months, we may not be working on it anymore. Maybe, right? And it could be back to the same thing that we were doing 8 years ago when we got here. Oh, now we're doing that again. All right, let's go back and do that thing again. That's what I know how to do that. I'm doing that real good. But now they said we had to do something different. But we know change is going to come. And so what we need to do is figure out how can we prepare our organizations? How can we prepare our teams? How can we prepare our people to adapt to changes that we know they're going to come? Do we need to train people? Do we need to give people new opportunities? Do we need to research some things? Do we need to send folks out to let them find out and let them know what's going on so that we can be prepared for the change that we know is going to come? We're here in Southwest. Any native Washingtonians here? Native Washingtonians? So in Southwest, right down the street, used to be a university called Southeastern University. Any of you all familiar with Southeastern University? Yeah, Southeastern University is a real university. I used to work there, so I know it's real. I got my master's from there. I know it's real. Southeastern University was founded, I believe, in 1878, chartered by Congress as a school of accounting because Congress says there needs to be a university here focused on for men and women who want to be accountants. And over the years, it expanded. And they started offering associate's degrees and bachelor's degrees and master's degrees. And they had people from literally all over the world who came to Southeastern University to study. Now, I say all over the world, and that's important because when I was working at Southeastern University, I would say 75% of our students were international students. That means they were on F1 visas where they were approved from their country to come here just to go to school. Now, if you've never been in the field of enrollment management and higher education, that is a wonderful student to have, an international student. Because before I can send them their visa, before I can give them any paperwork, they have to prove that they have the funding for 4 years of education. They don't have to apply for these FAFSAs and these tuition assistance grants. They don't have to jump online and write essays. They don't have to do anything. Oh, we loved international students because that was our cash cow. They came with the money. The money was there. People don't understand, but higher education is a business, by the way. It takes money to run universities. It takes money to pay all these big-time professors and PhDs and doctors and all these researchers that are coming through. It takes money to pay for facilities and technology and maintenance, and all that stuff takes money. So if you can come to me and say, I want to come to your university and I have $50,000 right now that I'm going to deposit with you, that's who I want. So the university flourished for years on the backs of international students. And I worked there, and I was pretty young and dumb, I like to say. And I would look around, and I said, man, where are all the other people? You know, I know it's some students over there at Ballou that might want to come here, and I know it's some students over there at High Point, or some students at Oxon Hill, or maybe some students in Montgomery County. I know there's some employees over here at HUD or the Department of Transportation that would love to take advantage of this opportunity to go back to school. How come we aren't talking to any of those people? Oh, Mike, we don't need to talk to them? You know, them young students, they want Greek fraternities, and they want a basketball team, they want a football team, they want a marching band, and we can't afford all of that stuff. No, they don't want all that stuff all the time. Some of them do, and they'll go to the schools where those things belong, but I know there's some community colleges out here, and I know there's a UDC out here, and I know there's some other programs out here. I know there's a grad school out here where you can just come and take your classes and go home, and you're not worried about all of that stuff. There's something that they call working adults. Working adults don't need no marching band. Right? Turn on the TV. Right? So nobody listened to me. And I would go and I would recruit these high school students, and oh, Mike, well, we're never going to have an environment with it. Okay, all right. And then guess what happened? Why did they close? What happened in 2001? In 2001, 9/11 happened. And after 9/11, they couldn't get no international students anymore, because the State Department said, oh, these people who are getting pilot's licenses, they were on student visas. These people who were driving trucks into buildings, they were on student visas. So the State Department said, we shutting down the student visa program for the foreseeable future. And guess what happened to our student body? Dried up, disappeared. Because we were so caught up with what was, we didn't anticipate what could be. And so sometimes leadership has to be able to have vision. Although no one would have ever predicted that 9/11 would happen, there could have been someone who was looking at the student enrollment in the student population and say, man, all of our money is tied up in this one group. You know, any good investor, advisor worth their salt will tell you to diversify your portfolio. Our portfolio wasn't diversified. And so we relied on this student body. And 9/11 happened in 2001. In 2009, Southeastern was no more. Southeastern doesn't operate. A school that had been around for 130 years, in the span of 7 years, had to close their doors, primarily because of low enrollment. Now, if you go back and do some research on Southeastern University, you'll see that there's some other things that were going on. There were some accreditation things and some faculty things, but they couldn't fix those problems because they didn't have any money from students that were coming in because they had stopped that program. So leaders and leadership find opportunities to prepare for change because we know it's going to come. We don't always have to change right away. We don't always have to shift and pivot right away, but you want to be able to prepare and anticipate it. And so it's important to make sure that there is someone in your organization who is responsible for making sure that we are prepared for change. Anybody can do that. It doesn't just have to be the top. Anybody can help organizations prepare for change. So that's the fifth essential. The sixth essential is manage processes. Manage processes. I like this one as well because I have a good saying that I like to help people understand is that you lead people, but you manage processes. People don't want to be managed, right? People want to be led, right? But resources need to be managed. Budget needs to be managed. Time needs to be managed. Projects needs to be managed. And so leadership ensures that the things that need to be managed are being managed. Leadership looks at processes and says, is there a way that we can do better? Can we continually improve this process? Is there something that we can do better? Am I doing the right things? So many times we focus on good things. Oh yeah, this is the good thing to do. This feels good, but is it the right thing that we should be doing? Right? Managers make sure that the weeds in the field are being cut. Leaders make sure that we're in the right field, cutting the right leaves in the right field. So you have to make sure that the things that can be managed are managed. We got to figure out what structure is appropriate. Do I need to be a micromanager? Do I need to be hands-on? Or do I need to fall back? Some of you may be familiar with the approach called situational leadership. Anyone's ever heard of situational leadership? And in situational leadership, there is a style for every different situation that you may find yourself in with someone who reports to you. And so what a leader has to do is figure out how to manage their styles that are appropriate to the situation. Oh, you've been around for 35 years. I don't need to micromanage you. You know what's going on. But you're coming right out of college. I might need to hold your hand a little bit more. I might need to coach you a little bit more. I might need to encourage you a little bit more. I might need to inspire you a little bit more, right? I'll let you all take the lead on this one. Y'all got it, and let me know if you need any help. oh, but wait a second, this is something that's super important. I need to make sure that I get my hands in it, get my hands around it, and know what's going on. But I need to make sure I manage that. And too often we focus on trying to manage and control people. And we boss them around because we got to, I got promoted now, I'm a supervisor. They got to do what I tell them to do. No, you need to lead people. But you need to manage all those processes and make sure the things that need to be getting done are being done. Does that make sense? The next one is tracking progress. Tracking progress. There's a saying, if there is no score, there is no game. So someone needs to be taking score. Someone needs to make sure we're going in the right direction, and we can track that to make sure we are getting closer to where we need to be. Remember, I talked about providing aiming points, and those aiming points helps us know where we're going, and there should be some markers along the way to let us know. So when I'm tracking progress, I need to be able to let folks know how close are we to those markers? How far away are we from those markers? I love coming to federal agencies around CFC time, because I get to see all these thermometers that's full of red, and they're going up and say, we're getting closer and closer to this goal, right? Because they're tracking it. Every single day they are tracking where we are, and you can walk in and you can see it. I call that visual performance management, right? You need to help people understand where we are and where we need to go, and where we could be and where we are. How close are we? How far away? We need to make sure we are tracking that. But sometimes what happens is leaders, we like to just delegate. Some leaders like to micromanage. Some leaders like to delegate and just give people stuff, and then you walk away from it, and then you come back and wonder why it's not what I wanted. Because you delegated it, but you weren't checking in and tracking progress to see where you're going. Write this down. You delegate authority, but not responsibility. You delegate authority, but not responsibility. That means I can delegate something to you to get done, but at the end of the day, it is still my responsibility to make sure it gets done. So if we get to the finish line and the result isn't what I wanted or what my boss wanted or what the colleagues wanted or what somebody else wanted, it is my responsibility to ensure that it happens. And so someone needs to be in charge of tracking where we are. If you're using some kind of sophisticated dashboard, that's great. If you're using a stubby pencil, that's great. If you're just having conversations every single day, that's great. If you're using a project management approach, of an agile approach or a waterfall approach, it doesn't matter what that process is, but people need to understand how to track where we are. And then when we help people understand how we're tracking where we are, then we can easily create mechanisms to hold people accountable. But it's hard to hold people accountable for things that they don't understand. They don't know what the expectations are. They don't know where we're supposed to go. And they don't know how close away or far they are from the goal. I was working with this organization. It's a blue-collar organization. And they had guys who go out and cut the baseball fields. And guys were frustrated with their managers, because managers would come in every morning and fuss them out every single day. Oh, I went out to that ball field and it looked terrible. Come in the next day, oh, I went to this other park and the ball field looked terrible. And finally they said, well, boss, we don't know what it's supposed to look like. We don't know, do you want the stripes to go left and right, north and south, east and west? Do you want it to be 1 inch, 4 inches? What do you want? You need to tell us what we want. We can do it if you tell us what it is, but sometimes we don't take the time to get specific about what we want and tracking what it looks like when we get there. We just want people to figure it out. And then when they haven't figured it out, we blame them. instead of holding ourselves accountable for ensuring that we are checking in to make sure that things are where they need to be. Again, anybody can do that. You can pull your group together. You can pull your team together. You can ask for check-ins. It doesn't have to be a special invitation to give you to say, hey, I just want to check in, see how you're doing, see where things are going, see how things are, make sure I'm going in the right direction. I don't want to get all the way to the end and I didn't give you what you needed. You don't need a official leader with a formal title and a nice big office to do that. Anybody can do that. Because we all know what the goal is. And we know what we need to do to get closer to that goal. So tracking progress is critically important to making sure that leadership in organizations thrives. And the last thing is thinking like an entrepreneur. Thinking like an entrepreneur. So I fought for this essential. And originally I said, own it like Oprah. But we thought that maybe if we published that title, Oprah would come and sue us. So we said, no, we're not going to use that, use her. But thinking like an entrepreneur is tremendously important. In this federal environment that we're in right now, we don't have always a profit motive. We're not always looking at how much money we're bringing in and how much money is going out. But I guarantee you all, if this was your personal business and you were an entrepreneur and you had to track your expenses, track what was coming in, you would pay attention to things differently than if it was somebody else's money, right? You would manage your resources differently if it was your own. So when we talk about thinking like an entrepreneur, what that means is creating an environment where people take ownership. That's what we want. We know what needs to happen. Now I want you to take ownership for making it happen. So people need to be empowered. People need to have information. People need to have the ability to ask questions. People need to have the ability to be curious and wonder what's going on. People need to be able to own their stuff so that they can feel a part of the environment, a part of the team, a part of the success. And so if you aren't paying attention to everything that's going on or making sure that somebody else is, then you're not thinking like an owner. I remember I used to work for the Department of Education, and we had to travel, and I would book my flight. Oh, shoot, I got to go to Santa Ana. I got to book my flight. I got to go to Santa Ana tomorrow. I haven't booked my flight yet. Let me call. I don't care if the flight's $800. I know they got money. They're going to pay for it. It's not my money. Well, look, I got to go to Santa Ana tomorrow. I booked my flight 6 months ago because I needed those savings because that was my money, right? When I'm printing, we try to make sure that the printing that we do, we are making sure that we're not just wasting money. So I'm reviewing and I print one copy and I review it and I let somebody else review it because I want to make sure that everybody has had their eyes on it before we print it out, because I don't want to have to print out 60 copies and catch a mistake and now we got to go print out 60 copies again because I got to pay for that. But when you're not thinking like an owner, when you're not thinking like an entrepreneur, you don't think that way. The other thing that we have to make sure we're thinking about as an owner is thinking about customer service. And how are we providing service to our customers? And we have internal customers and we have external customers. And we have customers, we have to make sure we know what our customers want. We have to make sure we know what our customers need. We have to anticipate those things so that we're positioning ourselves to give our customers the things that they're asking for and that they want. We need to be able to clearly articulate what our value proposition is. That means, why should you come to me? Nova said, yeah, Mike, I got a recommendation to bring you here, and I brought you here, and I heard some good stuff about you, so I know that, and I believe, and I trust in you that you're going to bring this audience something good, and I see the value in it. So my value proposition has been communicated to somebody who then communicated it to Nova, which resulted in me being here. But sometimes when we're not thinking like owners, we don't know what our value proposition is. We don't know how we're helping people. We don't know how we're saving money. We don't know how we are benefiting people from utilizing the things that we can bring for them every single day. We're just doing work. We're just pushing buttons. We're just clicking send. We're just showing up to meetings. But when you think like an owner and you begin to take ownership and take responsibility for the things that are going on in your environment, then you think differently. So think like an owner. Think about how to make sure you give your customers the best value. I was working at another agency, and I've been doing a series of writing workshops over the summer. I think I have one more in about 2 weeks, and helping people write reports. People write reports, no big deal. But what I learned is that people were writing reports and giving them to their supervisors, bosses, and they were having to completely rewrite the reports because the information that they were getting wasn't good information. It wasn't solid. It wasn't written well. It wasn't giving the information in the details, or they were giving too much details. And they were giving people 3 pages of stuff, and the people only wanted 3 paragraphs. So we had to help them understand how to write in a way that gives their customers what they need. That's customer service. That's leadership. Nothing wrong with that. That's what we need. That's what keeps us in business. That's what makes us successful. It's having products and services that offer people value, that they benefit from it, and at the end of the day, we're helping them achieve their goals. That's what entrepreneurs do. Entrepreneurs have ideas, and they figure out how to create products and services and systems that help to monetize those ideas. Y'all not monetizing your ideas here, but there is certainly something that you can do to provide value for your people. Customer service is a great thing. Anybody ever been to Las Vegas before? Oh, y'all scared. That's all right. We know. You're not going to get in trouble for saying you've been to Las Vegas, right? The great thing about Las Vegas is they give you great service. Most of the time. I see some faces like, wait a minute, I don't know great service. They pride themselves on giving great service anyway, right? They want to give you this buffet that is elaborate. They want to give you this resort that's fantastic, right? They want to make sure that you are feeling good and comfortable. Why? So you can keep spending that money. So they're giving you great service. I was in Las Vegas a few years ago for a workshop, and I was going to use the restroom. And there was a guy in there, and he said, hey, man, how you doing? I'm like, I'm doing all right. He said, man, that's a nice suit you have on. I said, oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. He said, oh, man, you look good. Well, what you doing in Las Vegas? I said, oh, I'm here for a conference, taking a workshop, oh, that's great. Well, what's it about? I said, well, I'm taking some coaching training. Oh, man, that's fantastic. Well, who's presenting? I said, oh, it's this instructor that I follow a lot, and he has some great things going. Oh, man, that is great. Oh, that sounds fantastic. I'm like, man, this is the best conversation I've ever had in the bathroom, right? I washed my hands, and I'm getting ready to walk. He said, excuse me, sir, can I borrow $5? I said, man, look at that. Even the people out here that's begging for money still give me good service and make me feel good about myself. That is great service. I had to give that man $5, right? Because he made me feel good. It was important. So that's what customer service is about, is how do we help people to feel good? How do we create value for our customers? How do we make sure we know what they want and what they need, and we're giving it to them in a timely fashion in a way that works for them? Because sometimes we give people the things that they need. And we get to the finish line. But we get to the finish line, we got a trail of bodies behind us. I don't want to have a trail of bodies behind us. I want people to feel good about their experience with me, about their experience with my business. And so I want to create that environment where they feel good. And so thinking like an entrepreneur helps to remind me to think about those things constantly, helps to remind me to think about resources and budget and time and efficiency and service and value, all these things that people call business terms, right? But they're not just business terms. They're terms that people use when their money and their bottom line is important to them. And they're paying attention to it, and they're tracking it, and they're always thinking about the return on their investment. So for every expenditure that I put out as an entrepreneur, I need to know what I'm getting back from it. I need to be clear on that. What am I going to get for it? Help me justify giving you my time, my money, and my energy. And so that's what thinking like an entrepreneur is. And so going back to the beginning, leadership is the capacity to imagine what needs to be done, to mobilize energy towards the accomplishment of activities that lead to desired outcomes. That's the vision. Activities that lead to desired outcomes and influence others to act through inspiration, passion, shared vision, and conviction to a recognized purpose. Thank you, Dr. Monroe. And that's what the 8 essentials of leadership are about. It's how do you create that environment? How do you figure out how to use yourself to get that stuff done? And it may be that you're not the one to do it. That's okay. That's why self-awareness is important. Hey, let me ask somebody else for help. This isn't my strength. Let me get some recommendation from somebody else. I can't do this. That's okay. But how do you create that environment where folks are willing and able to do and use their best stuff? That's what it's about. And it can happen at every single level of your organization. I'm going to end on this story. We were doing some work out in Phoenix a few years ago, and typically when we come in and we're doing some sort of consult, we start with an assessment, right? So we come in and we do some focus groups, or we do surveys, or we do one-on-ones. And so we were in this organization, and we heard from the leaders who brought us in about what they saw as the problem. We don't just want to rely on that perspective, so we go around and we talk to everybody. And so we're walking around and we're interviewing folks, or actually they're coming to our office, and we're talking and we're talking and we're talking. And this young woman came into our office, black woman in Phoenix, one of maybe 3 or 4 black folks who were in that office. And she was one of the younger ones in the office. So we talked to her and said, well, what's going on? What's your perspective? And she told us, this is what I'm seeing, and this is what's going on, and here's what I think the challenges are, and here's where I think the opportunities are, and if we would just do A, B, C, we could get this thing solved and there wouldn't be any problems. And we sat and we thought, man, she is bright, she got it. We understand it. She understands the scope, she understands the parameters, she understands what the challenges is and what she needs to do, or what the team or the office should do in order to solve this problem. So we were perplexed. Smart, you got it together, you've been here for a little while, but you know the environment. How come you've never offered this solution to anybody? Because nobody asked me. So nobody thought that I had any value to offer. No one created an environment where I felt empowered to share. I've tried to share before and I got beat up for it. I shared my insights before and no one cared to hear about it, or no one thought it was important. Nobody saw any value in it. And now here they are bringing y'all in, and I'm sure they're paying y'all a whole lot of money, which they were. That was a joke, y'all supposed to laugh. But I had to answer right here, and nobody asked me. And so what leadership would do is create an environment where that doesn't happen. I remember when I was young and I didn't know what my dad did, and he'd been in this business, and I would hear him tell all these stories. And I would say, Dad, you're going to be in business forever, because I hear these stories and there's some crazy people out in these organizations. And he said, you're right. We come in and we tell people the things that they already know. But for some reason, they hear it differently when it comes from us. I don't know why. I'm okay with that. But great leadership solves problems at the lowest levels, because that's where all the nitty-gritty is. And when you have leadership that creates an environment where people can solve problems on their own, you don't need to bring us in. Y'all can figure it out yourselves. Y'all got smart people, talented people, skilled people, experienced people that can work together. But it doesn't matter how smart people are, how much money you have, if people aren't in an environment where they feel engaged, where they feel inspired, where they feel empowered, and they're willing to use their discretionary emotional energy to help us reach our goals, you're not going to get there. You're going to end up having to spend money on outside stuff that may or may not be getting us where we wanted to go, when all along we had all the answers right here. And so that is what the essentials of leadership is about. It's first about increasing my self-awareness, understanding how I impact the environment, how I am impacted by the environment. It's about how do I provide the aiming points to help people understand what the goals are, what the vision is, what the objectives are, where we need to go and why we need to go there. How do I figure out how to get people on board? And once they're on board, how do I take that energy and convert it into effort that helps us get to where we need to go? And then once I get there, I know that we're going to have some challenges. We're going to have to adapt to some changes. So how does leadership make sure that we adapt to changes? And we're going to have some processes that we need to put in place to make sure we're going in the right direction. We have some systems that we need to build and we need to create. How do we make sure that those processes are in place? And then once we have those systems in place and people are on board and we got everything going, how do we track progress to make sure we're going in the right direction? And once we know we're going in the right direction, how do we know that when we get there, we have added value to the lives of the people who we're serving? That's what the essentials of leadership are about. That's the opportunity that you all have every single day. Again, regardless of where you sit, what level you are, what kind of car you drive, how long you've been around here, you have an opportunity to demonstrate leadership every single day, because leadership is a function that the organization needs, and not just the responsibility of a small group of people or one person. So let me say this. I'm sure this isn't anything new for you all. I'm sure you may have heard some of this stuff before, and maybe I've mixed it up a little bit and shown it to you a different way, but it reminds me of a story my dad used to tell. My dad's an old country boy down in Hampton, Virginia, and he was growing up, and him and my grandfather used to have these tomato growing competitions. I don't like tomatoes. I would never have been in that competition, but that's what they used to do. They used to compete to see who could grow the biggest, juiciest tomatoes. And every year, my grandfather would beat my dad. Oh, his tomatoes were big and juicy, and my dad started cheating. He would go and he would see what type of seeds he was using and what type of soil he was using. He tried to do everything my grandfather did, and he could never get it right. And so finally, he stopped my grandfather, and he said, Dad, you beat me every single year. I don't understand how you have these great-looking tomatoes and mine are just these little puny things, and we got everything the same way. And he says, son, what you don't see is the work that I do in the soil to get the soil ready before I plant the seeds. Sometimes you got to get the soil ready so that the soil can receive it. And so what we did today was just got the soil ready so that the seeds that you all are planting, that you go back and you plant in your organizations and you go out back and plant with your team members and your leaders and your colleagues, that the soil will be ready to receive this stuff that you're going to go back and plant. But you got to take some time to get the soil ready. So I hope that these essentials that I presented to you all today will help you as you prepare to get your soil ready. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? I think that's what this time is for. Questions? Yes, go ahead. Sure.
Step up to the mic, please.
I just want to ask for a copy of the slide. It's going to be available for us.
Are you willing to share your
I'm
slides?
willing to share the slides.
All right, I will send it to everyone who signed a sign-in sheet.
Yep. Let me, Nova, what I'll do is I'll resend them to you.
Okay.
But Nova will send them out to everyone. Sure, no problem. More questions? Any other questions? Yes.
Hello. My question is around the converting energy to effort.
Sure.
So it's twofold. The first one is a lot of times when you go to trainings like this or sessions, they don't address culture.
Sure.
And so when you're in a culture where people tend to be in the rear view, it's kind of hard to get the momentum going towards an effort because it's stopped by, well, it always worked for us. That's what it is.
We've always done it this way.
Always done it this way. When
Sure.
you have work groups, it's always the same people over
Sure.
and over again.
Sure.
So my question is, how can you kind of combat that? And then the second part is, I'm noticing a negative connotation around keep that energy and put it towards something else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because people are thinking that it means you're setting me up for failure.
Sure.
You just don't want to see me do well.
Yeah.
So also, how can you work against that as well?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Good question. So, culture is huge, right? Culture is, to kind of define it in simple terms, culture is the way we do things around here. It's just what we do is what we do, how we do it. And culture is not something that can be changed overnight. But in converting potential energy into effort, one thing that you have to do is be consistent, right? And sometimes you have to be willing to do more or do different than you think is required, right? So yeah, I think that's a great idea, and they're telling me to do something different. All right, cool. Well, you know what? I'm going to take my own time, and I'm going to go and figure this out on my own time. I remember a few years ago, I was made aware of the Under 5 program here. Does anybody recall the Under 5 program? And I don't know a whole lot of details about the Under 5 program, but from what I understood, it was for staff, professionals who have been in the agency for less than 5 years, and there was some sort of momentum around engaging them and making them feel good, because retention seemed like that was an issue. And from what I understand now, I'm not here, but from my understanding, part of what the Under 5 program did was give people an opportunity to work on things on their own free time, maybe during lunch, and they had conversations and they had plans and they had presentations. And so I use that example to say, yeah, you may not get the green light to work on things in the way that you want to work on them, but that doesn't mean you can't work on them in another way and have that sitting in your back pocket. Have that presentation available. Say, hey, I worked on this last night. Can we take some time to think about this? Can we take some time to talk about it? But what I find is that when you get your first no, we give up. And when we give up, then people say, oh, well, they weren't committed anyway. It wasn't that important. They faced a little bit of resistance. And sometimes I find that every no just brings me closer to a yes. And so if I'm consistent and willing, that I'm willing to try it, you never know. And in this political environment that you're in, it may not work for these 4 years. But you may have another 4 years that somebody comes in and say, you know what, I was working on that. I got a plan for it. And there you go. So you have to be patient. You have to be consistent, but you have to be willing to put in the effort beyond what you are already expected to do. Sometimes that's just the reality of the situation. Thank you. Other questions?
So my question is, how how do you sustain this, right? Because it's exciting and it's the
Yeah.
energy and it's exhausting,
Sure.
right? So how do you keep that energy up?
Yeah, a lot of coffee. No, think about a candle. And sometimes what we have to do is see ourselves as candles, and it takes a lot of energy and chemical reactions to get a candle burning. But once that candle's burning, if you can find a way to tilt that candle over, it'll light the next candle. And you get a way to tilt that candle over, it'll light the next candle. And that may take 1 year, it may take 10, right? I don't know. But if you are passionate about it and you believe in it, you have to find ways to get other people involved so you're not the only one carrying the weight. Because at some point, the juice ain't worth the squeeze, right? I'm doing all this stuff and things aren't changing. And so at some point, you got to say, okay, either I need to change because this situation isn't going to change, or I'm willing to keep slugging through it and keep pushing and hoping that one day we realize this vision that I think is bigger than all of us. So effort, energy, I talk a lot about physical fitness and mental health. All those things are important. Leaders need all of that stuff because it requires all of that every single day to really create the environment where people are juiced up and excited. Sorry, I know you wanted a silver bullet, but if I had that one, I would tell you, but I don't have that one. Any other questions? Do we have any questions online or anything? No. Okay.
I just had one question.
Yes.
Under managing processes, it said create accountability but no finger pointing.
Yeah.
So how, and I work in finance, so some mistakes could be really detrimental to our budget.
Sure.
But how do you let people know their role in a situation to make it better without, you don't want to point the finger, but you
Yeah.
need to help people understand if you continue not monitoring properly or tracking properly, it could be a negative impact on the budget.
Yes, so two things. First, you want to give people context and meaning, right? When I say context and meaning, you need to help people understand where the work that they're performing fits in the bigger picture and what the impact of them doing it or not doing it is, right? So when you make this mistake, this is what happens. It's not just in the vacuum, it impacts all these other things. And so it's helpful to help people understand that bigger picture, right? And then the next piece of it is then it becomes a performance issue. And so there needs to be some accountability measures that get talked about on a regular basis that are integrated into some type of performance plan, some type of performance agreement, some type of performance conversation. Because it's okay if you make a mistake, right? But I don't expect to see the same mistakes over and over and over and over again. So I'm willing to coach you, I'm willing to train you, I'm willing to give you the resources that you need, but at some point, if you aren't meeting the standards of the performance that you're expected to deliver, then we need to have not a leadership conversation, not an accountability conversation, but a performance issue that says, based on you performing this way, this is how you're going to be held accountable. We need to have that conversation as part of this is why you messed up, right?
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you.
This has been really outstanding. I appreciate your participation. Mike has been did a fabulous presentation, and all my emails were, "Can you please send me the presentation?" So as soon as Mike sends me the new presentation, I will send it out to those of you in the room who signed a sign-in sheet from wherever agency you came from, including HUD, and I will also send it to those who were responding to at the laal@hud.gov. If you sent me an email to confirm that you participated in the training and you want those, I'll probably just go ahead and send it to you anyway. Lastly, I'm going to also let you know I have QR codes in the back of the room if you want to If your cell phones have the QR reader on it, you can provide your evaluations from your cell phone by going to those QR codes in the back. If not, I will also be sending you all the evaluation links. Please provide us your feedback. We really use that to determine if we need to tweak or if we need to make improvements, or if we're doing a great job, we need to hear that information. So let's see, anything else? That, I believe that is it, but I wanted to say, really say thank you to Mike. Mike was really patient with me when I asked him for certain things that I needed from time to time, and he was really on it, and he's also been doing training for us. So it was a great opportunity to finally meet him prior to this particular session. So we thank you all for coming, and we don't want to delay you any further. Thank you so much for coming.
My contact information is on this last slide. If for some reason you miss or forget to request the email or have any other additional questions that you want to ask, cell phone, email, social media, all that stuff, our website is all there. Send me a line or text me or however, call me, whatever.
It'll be in the
I'm always
presentation
available.
too, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
All right, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.